a new sword in. This guy right here. This is the Honshu Boshin tactical katana, and I use that word tactical very loosely. There's a lot I like about this, and then there's stuff I hate about it. So it's kind of like a love-hate feelings of this sword. But first, let's go over what we have. The saya, actually, there's no rattle. Okay, so they did a good job on that. Okay, aesthetically, it's very pleasing to the eyes. I like it. I like the look. I wouldn't call this a tactical katana. I would call it a more modernized katana. But there's some issues with this thing. But like I said, I like the look. They did a good job on the presentation knot. It's nice and tight. Even though this is phony leather, it looks good. Stays in place. A lot of people don't like the TPR rubber on it. They say it digs in their hands. That's why I have this on. Instead of like putting tape around it, these are Muay Thai wraps. So you could put those on. So that's another option you can have if this bothers your hands. I have really rough hands from what I do every day, so it doesn't bother me. The blade is a 1060 blade. It's got a bohea in it. Okay. And bohea's nice. There's no ripples in it. There's no ripples on the blade. It's nice and clean. They have their Honshu logo. I don't know if you can see that right on the side. It's nicely done. And you get a nice, generous, from here to the tip, 29 inches, if I remember correctly, of cutting. So that's a lot. It really is. So it's nice and generous. Overall, on their webpage, it says overall, from here to the tip, you have 30 3/8 inches. I measured mine, it's 30 1/4. So it's like an 1/8 inch off from being what it says on the webpage. And this is on United Cutlery's webpage, by the way. Now, there's things they don't tell you. Okay, as you can tell, it doesn't have the traditional habaki, and we're going to be getting into that. Down here, it's got a decent edge, but once you start getting up here, it's a little bit sharper. We'll have some cutting with this. So about half the blade has a nice good edge. The other half, it's okay. And we'll get into how they put the edge on this as well too. So, but there is a lot I like about it. Like I said, it's aesthetically pleasing. So if you like that look, it's actually a really nice looking sword. The saya is nice, no rattle like I said. Now here's the problem. If you look at that mouth, it's a rectangle cutout. Like I said, it has no habaki. So when I first got it, it feels like it's locked in. It doesn't stay locked in. So I wouldn't you can hold it like that, but if you've got to go down fast, if you have it in a belt, it's going to fall out. So there's an issue right there. The guard does what it's supposed to do. It keeps your hand from slipping up onto the blade. But it kind of forces you to yank the sword out of the saya, which is never good for the saya. Because if you push with the thumb, yeah, you got from here to here no edge, but then you have an edge right there. So using your thumb to push that blade out, yeah, you got something that's not an edge right there, but I wouldn't trust that too much. So to traditionally unlock this, I wouldn't trust it, just in case it just flies out of there, since the fit in the side isn't like it should be. Like I said, the TPR handle doesn't bother me. Now, the handle. The handle, and I'll show you here in a minute. I gotta get it. Let me line these up. It's the same length as my wakizashi. Okay, so this is my wakizashi, and I have it pretty much flush. Now let me show you traditional handle. The traditional handle is way longer, not by much, but it's way longer. And that's because from the guard to right about here is 8 1/4. So it's a short handle on this. If you go from the guard to the end of the pommel, you have about 10 1/4. So they kind of made the handle a little too short. This area in here, I would rather prefer it was like 10 1/2, which will get to the performance of it. Because I do believe this plays a very big factor on how this feels. Cutting with 2 hands with this is fine. You can do it. Okay. You can cut 2-handed with this all day long. Although your hands, if you see my hands, they're a little close. So I have to choke up to that guard, which this guard is going to hinder you a little bit. And then your hands back here near the pommel. It's comfortable because it swoops, but the hand's kind of close. Whereas if we go with this bohayu right here, I can keep my hand down from the fuchi and my hand right here, and I've got a little bit more room to play around with. And if I have to, I can choke up. But normally you want to be about that, like that. You want to keep the index finger just below that fuchi. That gives you more control. Your finger, your hand, when you're up here, it doesn't restrict you as much. So they should have made this handle just a tad longer. Because, like I said, it's just really too short. Which I think plays into how this feels in the hand. This has a really front heavy blade. And granted, the blade, let me see if I can get that in there, is really thick. It's got a thick blade, which is fine. Okay, very little distal taper though, very little. The back of the blade, the spine, the mune, about halfway up, about to here, is 1/4 inch thick. And then from here to the tip is 3/16. So there's only a 1/16 difference. So it's the balance, if you measure it from the guard up is about 4.5. But it's just got this really front heaviness to it. And I think it's due in part, they try to put this pommel here, this big pommel, to kind of counter it. If they had probably extended this out to a traditional size, the cats. If they had extended this out, they could have kept this pommel, made it about 10.5 at least. It would eliminate this front heaviness a little bit more. Because I got some swords that are front heavy, but not like this. When I first got it, I tried cutting with it. And two-handed, you'll do great. One-handed, you've got to have a strong forearm for that. And when you go to cut, you got to kind of lock your wrist in, because if you don't, when you cut with this, because it's so front heavy, your edge alignment wants to kick off. It wants to roll. So this is what it's done to me. Also, it vibrates. If you hit something solid, I actually hit my stand with this, and it was fine. It vibrates all the way down into the handle. And it vibrates pretty good. So, the handling, yeah, you could do two-handed just fine. One-handed, no, I wouldn't. Now, unless you have a really good, strong forearm, and you got to, once you're going to make contact, you got to kind of lock that wrist in, which is going to tire out your wrist. So, yeah, I wouldn't do one-handed. Now, how they sharpened this is a beveled edge. So like an edge on a knife is how they sharpen this. It's not a V grind like a traditional swords have, because even European swords have a V grind. This is a beveled edge. So it's fine, but the cutting power like a traditional katana has, it won't be there like it should have. Because that's the beauty of a katana, the ways, and European, all swords actually, pretty much. They have a V grind, so from this point to where the shinogi starts, that's all cutting power. You put in a beveled edge, you have that edge, then it goes, you have the edge right here, then it goes down. So it has to cut first, then move up onto a ledge to continue, if that makes sense. When it dulls out, I'll probably take it to my stone and actually grind this, resharpen it, reprofile it into what it should be. And I'll probably cut even way, way, way better. But that vibration, I mean, you can feel it all the way down that handle. And there's a few other, even European swords, there's some that they've, and not Honshu brand, that people can feel the vibration in the handle and they just hate that. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Cutting bottles with it, though, you don't feel that vibration, at least I didn't. I mean, it just sailed right through bottles, so that's not a big deal. It's got a nice wide blade, though, on it, as you can see. The blade is nice and wide. So it is through hardened 1060. So it's not like the higher end steel 1095 T10. As far as if you wanted to use this for Iaido, you can't. First off, the fit in the saya isn't very good. You want to make sure that your sword fits good if you're going to perform Iaido. Second, the korigata, this little knob right here, is too far back. I can put a hand and almost a half in there. Okay, so that's way, 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 way too much. It's too far back. So if you were to put this in an obi belt, it's gonna stop right there, and you're gonna have all this sticking out. So that's way too much. Also, unless you have a fairly long arm, mine comes out to almost 28 inches. Okay, so 27 and a half, almost 28 is perfect for me to draw the sword, because basically you want the blade from your fingertips to your shoulder, top of your shoulder. That's how long you want your blade. Because when you do saibiki, you want to be able to move the sai and draw the sword at the same time, and once your arm is extended, it should be free from the saya. This, like I said, is a overall 30 and a quarter inch blade. I can't draw that. Not fast. So if you had a longer arm, if you have longer arms, yeah, you probably could. But it's not going to fit in your obi belt if you put in an obi belt. Plus this leather wrap and this is going to be hard to shove down in between the obi belt. So that creates another problem. How do you carry it? I mean, you can carry it by hand, yeah, if you're like camping or stuff like that. But unless you get like a European, I would say, sword frog, which if you don't know what a sword frog is, that's how the Europeans would attach their swords to the belt. You see their sheath, and it would have either ties, like leather ties, or belt buckles that would cinch around their sheath, and it would hang off their belt. So basically they would hang like that, basically, almost like a tachi. So you could get a frog, or you can make one, because you would have to get it to fit at least around here, up in this upper part, right here. Or you could get one of those deals where you get attached to your back. But then again, you have the problem if you only have, like I have, it's a little bit over 27 inches long length arm, you're not going to fully draw this out. You're going to have an inch, maybe half inch still inside the saya, so it's going to be kind of difficult. So you'd have to take it off your back maybe, still, draw the sword. So that's why I don't really consider this kind of like a tactical sword and more of a modern sword. Because if you look up tactical gear, it's one of the wordings says it's easy deployment. Well, if you can't deploy this easily and quickly, it doesn't really fit that criteria then. So, would I recommend this sword to a beginner? And this is my personal feelings. No. I wouldn't recommend this to a beginner. If you're starting out with even a European sword, I would not recommend this. This would give you a misconception of how swords feel in the hand. With this front heaviness. I mean, it's right now, with the sai on there, I'm really having to use muscle just to keep it like this. Okay? Even with the sai off. I mean, that front just wants to drop. So, in my opinion, no, not for beginners. I wouldn't get this. Because like I said, it's going to give you a misconception how swords actually feel. Like I said, there are some swords that are front heavy. This is kind of like a weird front heaviness to it. And it, like I said, it takes some effort to use one-handed. And with a katana, that's designed for two hands, but you'll notice that there's a lot of one-handed moves with the katana. And that's the beauty of it. You can use it two-handed or one-handed. Because, yes, shinogi is a little bit heavier than, like, let's say, an unabakai. But they're still nimble in the hands, and the sword should feel kind of nimble in your hands. This does not feel nimble in the hands. Now, that being said, if you've had a little bit of experience with swords and you know the weight differentiates to the swords, then I would say, yeah, go ahead. You know, this would be a fun little thing to get. But for beginners, I would not recommend this sword at all. If you want to get into tamashigiri or bottle cutting or learning moves, I wouldn't get this as a beginner. No way. So, I mean, that's just me though. And that's where I was getting to too with the handle. On Honshu's website, United Cutlery, it doesn't tell you the handle length anywhere, that this handle is only, you might as well say 8¼ inches long. To me, if, like I said, if they had extended this out more, you'd eliminate that weird frontness to it. It'd be way, way better. And I think that's why they put this big, huge pommel on there, because you really don't need that. And then they have a lanyard hole here, which to me is a pointless thing. Would have been more efficient. You could still use it as that. It just made this a glass breaker. Really. You're not going to put a lanyard in there and tie and put your hand through it with this sword. That's kind of, if you fall down, the sword's going with you. Instead of, if you fall down, you can throw it and get it away from you. So yeah, that to me, drilling that hole there was pointless. Glass breaker would have just been ideal, you know, if they want to call it like a tactical thing, I don't know. So let's talk price on this. So it's 3 prices, and I'll give you my personal opinion on the price range. So Bud K carries this for $124.99. Okay, so about $125. Okay. Amazon's got it. It's $135. So about $136. Okay, so we're not bad there. I think True Swords has it, and it's like $124 too, but Bud K owns True Swords. I don't buy off of Bud K anymore. So we got 2, and those are to me, those 2 prices are reasonable for this right here. I think those are a reasonable price if you want to get a fun little sword just to play around with, okay? And you're not worried that you're going to be out a ton of money, okay? Because like you get into T10 blades, $10.95, they get more expensive. You're getting into $200, $300, I don't know. So those to me, I feel are reasonable prices. Now, go to United Cutlery's webpage and you look this exact same sword up, $241. $110 more than Amazon. Okay. Do I think this is worth $241? And this is my personal opinion. No, I don't. The weird, really front heaviness to this thing, where it does not feel nimble in the hands. The, you know, falling out of the saya, because it really doesn't lock in. No. The really short handle on it, which doesn't, I mean, one-handed, like I said, you gotta lock that wrist in, otherwise you're losing that edge alignment. There is, like I said, I like it. I love the look of it. It cuts really good. Yeah, the TPR doesn't bother me, but like I said, I have rough hands, but you can do Muay Thai wraps too. I found it fun to cut with, and a little bit of a challenge to cut one-handed. We'll have a little bit of cutting in this video. So it's kind of a love-hate for this thing. I don't want to hate totally on it, but I do. I can't like it 100%, but then I can't hate it 100%. It's kind of weird because it does look really nice. You know, it cuts really nice. But it's like I can't give it a really good rating neither. It's just they could have had something. This is how I feel. Something so good here, and they just dropped the ball a bit. Like if they were to bring this handle out a little bit more, even if from here to here it comes out to be 10.5 inches, I do believe it would eliminate this really funky front heaviness on here. Even with the beveled edge, you know, that's fine. Just get rid of this front heaviness and extend this handle a little bit more. And you'd have, I think they would have a hell of a more modernized katana that maybe, I'm not going to say for sure, would justify on their web page $241. So, but yeah, I can't give this high props. I just can't. But in the same sense, I can't say it sucks altogether. So it's kind of a mixed feeling sword. I know a lot of people like the Honshu, and that's great. And then there's some people who don't like the Honshu, and that's fine. And this is just, like I said, this is my opinion. They could have had something super good here. But it's like, until you get one, it's hard for you to judge it. And it was like, all right, I'll get one, I'll do a review on it, and I'll see. It is fun to cut with. It really is. And like I said, they give you a nice, generous blade. You know, they really do. I mean, 29 inches cutting blade. I don't know if I can get it in view here. We're going to give it a try. Okay. So this is my Bohayu. Okay. And here's United Cutlery. Or, yeah, the Honshu. I mean, look at that thing. It's just a little bit longer. And, I mean, so they give you some reach with it. So I give it props for that. I really do. It's just, I got to tighten that up. I just can't give it 100% props. I just can't. And I definitely, like I said, I would not recommend this to a beginner starting out. I wouldn't. Because I feel they would get a misconception like, oh man, you can't control this thing. It's just way too front heavy. And that's not how swords are, actually. Some are a little bit, like I said, I have some that are a little bit front heavy, but this is like a weird front heaviness to it. It really is. So that's my thoughts on the Honshu Boshin tactical katana. Yeah, it's definitely a love-hate thing. And it's very disappointing that they had something here that they can just, if they just tweak it just a little bit, not much, they would have something really good here. You know, and extending this handle a little bit more would probably eliminate that vibration in the handle too. So, because it's not so condensed down. But, like I said, that's my review on this. And I hope you guys found it informative. We'll have a cutting session coming up with this after this whole little thing. And I hope everyone's having a great weekend and staying cool. I know it's warm. And you all have a good one.